to another episode of our biology lectures. Today, we shall be treating a very important topic in biology called genetics. Genetics. Now, genetics is very important as long as biology is concerned. In fact, as long as science is concerned, genetics is very, very important. In our day-to-day life activities, we apply genetics in solving some relevant family problems. There are some little issues that we need the knowledge of genetics to solve. Now, when you're devoid of this knowledge, you might be unable to solve such problems. You're not only learning genetics to pass exams, you're also learning genetics to help you in your day-to-day activities. Okay, now, we'll first of all understand the meaning of genetics. What is genetics? Genetics can be seen as the study of heredity and variation, or it can be defined as a branch of biology that studies heredity and variation. So it is a branch of biology that studies heredity, and variation. Now, what is heredity and what is variation? Heredity can be seen as the transfer of traits, characters, and behavior from parents to offspring. The transfer of traits, character, and behavior from parents to offspring. While variation can be seen as the changes or the differences that occurs between individuals of a particular population or species. Example of traits that can be transmitted from parent to offspring, we have, for example, shape, which could be the shape of head, nose, mouth. We also have skin color. Skin color is an example of hereditary characteristics that can be transmitted from parents to offspring. Now, talking about variation, if you come to a family where you have your direct siblings, now there are some differences that occurs or you can see between you and your direct sibling, be your brother or your sister. It could be that you have an oblong head shape, while your brother has an oval head shape, but the both of you came from the same parent. Now, this difference is what we call variation. I hope you get that. So, genetics can be seen as a study of heredity and variation. Heredity is what? The transfer of traits, character, and behavior from parents to offspring, while variation is the differences that occurs between offspring of a particular species or population. Now, moving forward in understanding genetics to its fullest, we need to understand the languages used in genetics. I call them genetic languages. Now, if you're not a Hausa speaking man, or you're not an Igbo speaking man, or you're not familiar with a particular language, if someone should speak that language to you, you'll be unable to understand what the person is saying, or you become unable to interpret what the person is actually saying because you don't know that language. Now, genetics has its own language. And if you want to understand genetics, you must understand its languages. Now, we'll call these languages genetic terminologies. Genetic terminologies. These are terms used in genetics. These are terms used in genetics. And these terms will help us while solving genetic problems. Now, we're going to be making a list of some basic terms we need to understand before we can actually solve genetic problems. Number one, gene. Number two, genotype. Number three, phenotype. Number four, mutation. 5, dominant. Number 6, recessive. Number 7, homozygous. Number 8, heterozygous. Number 9, phenotypic ratio. Number 10, genotypic ratio. Genotypic ratio. Now, by the time we're done exhausting these terms, we'll still list some others and we'll explain them appropriately. Now, let's start with the gene. What is a gene? A gene is the basic unit of inheritance. Don't forget that. A gene can be seen or can be defined as the basic unit of inheritance. Number 2, genotype. A genotype can be defined or can be seen as the genetic constituent or the genetic makeup of an individual. That is, the kind of gene an individual is made up of. That's what we call the genotype. And it is important to note that we have majorly 3 kinds of genotype. We have AA, we have AS, and we have SS. These are the major kinds of genotype that we have. Now, AA is a normal or a healthy individual. AA is a healthy individual. AS is a carrier of sickle cell. The carrier of sickle cell disease, that's AS. SS is a sickle cell patient, a sickle cell anemic patient, while SS is a sickle cell anemic patient. Sickle cell anemic patient. Now, as an AA, you can get married to AS and SS. As an AS, you can only get married to what? AA. You can't get married to AS or SS. Why? Because if an AS gets married to an AS, there's every possibility that they will have an SS individual. Now, as an SS, you can only get married to what? AA. Because if you get married to an SS, definitely you will have children that are SS. Or as an SS, you get married to an AS, there's every possibility that you have children that are what? SS. So it is very, very risky. You don't try that. That is for the genotype. Now, number 3, phenotype. The phenotype can be seen as the physical or outward appearance of an individual. So physically, what you can see about that individual is the phenotype of that individual. Now take note. The phenotype always comes with a capital letter, and it's always the first letter in a gene. For example, we have this gene, capital T, small t, where the capital T is the allele for tallness, while small t is the allele for shortness. Now, the phenotype of this individual is tall. Physically, what you are seeing is what? The capital T, which is the allele for tallness. Now, inside of that same individual, that person is carrying the gene for shortness, but it is what? Recessive. You can't see it. What you can actually see is what? The gene for tallness, or the allele for tallness. So this individual is actually what? Tall, but carrying the gene for shortness. So the phenotype is the outward appearance of an individual, which always comes as the first letter of every gene. Take note of that. Mutation. Mutation can be seen as a sudden change in the gene component of an individual. A sudden change in the gene component of an individual. That is what we call mutation. And mutation can actually lead to a change in the population over a long period of time. There are several causes of mutation. Ultraviolet rays from the sun can actually cause mutation. Then, radiations from our phones, laptops, and other electronic gadgets can lead to mutation. Okay, now move forward. Dominant. What is the dominant gene? From the word dominant, it simply means supersedes or to be in charge. A dominant gene is that gene that is expressed in the presence of another gene. So that gene that is expressed when there is another gene is called the dominant gene. For example, we have capital T, small t. Now, the dominant gene here is what? The capital T, because it is always expressed. Note, the dominant gene always comes with a capital letter. It always comes with a capital letter. So no matter what happens, if a recessive gene crosses with a dominant gene, the dominant gene suppresses the recessive gene. So a dominant gene is that gene that actually is expressed in the presence of another gene. Now the recessive gene, number 6. The recessive gene can be seen as the opposite of the dominant. So it is that gene that is suppressed in the presence of another gene. The recessive gene is the gene that is suppressed in the presence of another gene called the dominant gene. So here, the small letter here is the recessive gene. Note, the recessive gene always comes with a small letter. So in this gene here, you have, this is the dominant gene, this is the recessive gene. So the recessive gene is always suppressed in the presence of another gene called the dominant gene. Homozygous. A homozygous gene is that gene that is expressed in both alleles. The gene that is expressed in both alleles, or is a gene that comes in one pair. For example, from the word homo, it simply means same, the same. So the same kind of genes being expressed. For example, we have capital T, capital T. This is a homozygous gene. Small t, small t. This is a homozygous gene. So they are of the same alleles. They are of the same alleles, the homozygous gene. Now the next one is the heterozygous gene. Heterozygous gene is that gene that has different pairs of contrasting characters. For example, we have capital T, small t. This is a heterozygous gene. So the gene has both the dominant gene and the recessive gene. That is what we call heterozygous. From the word hetero, hetero means different. So we have different alleles combined together to give you a particular gene. That is what we call heterozygous gene. Now, number 9, phenotypic ratio. The phenotypic ratio can be seen as the ratio at which the phenotype of an individual occurs in a particular generation. It can be seen as the ratio at which the phenotype of an individual or offspring occurs in a particular generation. Let's say, for example, these are the generations that were produced from a cross between two parents. So these are the offspring, 1, 2, 3, 4. They are 4 in number. Now, if I ask you, what is the phenotypic ratio here? Now, you segregate each of these genes. Look at it. I told you that the phenotype is what? It's the first letter. You look at the first letter first. So here we have the capital T. Here we have another capital T. So the phenotypic ratio is 2 is to. Now here you have small t, small t. 2 is to 2. That's the phenotypic ratio. The ratio at which what? The outward appearance or the physical nature of an individual occurs in the offspring. So here we have tall, here we have short. That is 2 is to 2. 2 short, 2 tall. Looking at the first letter or the initials of the genes. Now let's move to the genotypic ratio. This is the ratio at which the genes of an individual occurs in a particular generation. For example, we gave this here. Okay, let's say for example we have this. We are using the same example. Now we have this. Now, looking at this critically, you have this is tall. These two genes are the same. Why these two genes are what? They are the same. So the genotypic ratio is what? 2 is to 2. This is the genotypic ratio. Here you look at both genes together. This and this are the same. This and these are the same. So that is that about these 10 languages. Now we're going to be explaining some other languages for us to understand the genetic languages better, to solve genetic problems effectively. Number 11, we have the filial generation. What is the filial generation? This is the result of a cross between two parents to give rise to their offspring. Now their offspring is called the filial generation. The filial generation could be called F1. F1 simply means first filial generation, F2 simply means second filial generation, and so on. For example, let's say we have a cross between two heterozygous tall parents. Now the result of the offspring is called the filial generation. Now here we have three tall individual, one short individual. Now these offspring are called the F1 generation. Now if you pick an offspring from here and cross it with another offspring, it gives you the result or the outcome is called the F2 generation. So filial generation is the result of a cross between two parents to give rise to the offspring. The offspring is called the filial generation. Now secondly, okay, number 12, we have blood groups. Now, there are basically four kinds or types of blood group. We have blood group A, blood group B, blood group AB, and blood group O. Now, blood group A can be heterozygous and homozygous. Blood group A heterozygous is AO. Now the O here, the blood group O here is always recessive. So blood group A heterozygous is AO, while blood group A homozygous is AA. Blood group B heterozygous is BO, while blood group B homozygous is BB. Now blood group AB, they are codominant, while blood group O is recessive. Blood group A can collect blood from blood group O and A. Blood group B can get blood from blood group O and B. Blood group AB can get blood from blood group A, B, AB, and O, but cannot give blood to any of these blood groups except blood group AB. That is why they are referred to as universal recipients. Blood group O can give blood to all the blood groups, but cannot get blood from any of them except blood group O. Therefore, they are referred to as universal donors. Now, in the course of answering genetic questions, we'll come across questions involving blood groups. Now, in form, blood group O is always recessive in the blood group system. Now, in our next class, we're going to be solving problems that are related to genetics, and it will be probability and applications of genetics. We'll see you in the next class. And please don't forget to subscribe to our TV channel, Aris Television. Please subscribe, please comment, very, very important, comment. Please like our videos, and don't forget to share them. It is very, very important to us. Thank you very much. I appreciate your kind gesture. It's very, very important. Thank you, and see you in our next class. Ciao, ciao.